notice that he is walking along the node as best he can, because it's obviously the part that's moving the least. Anyway, it's kind of a nearest disaster.
How does wind make a whole bridge collapse? And the frequency and the resonance?
It is actually not a resonance issue. In the classic sense, there are some physics textbooks that will use this as an example of resonance. But if this is resonance, let me grab the slinky and show what resonance is. So when you're dealing with resonance, things all have a natural frequency. That if I thump on the table, it'll make a certain sound of a certain frequency, and that's just natural based upon it and the stuff on it. Doesn't matter how I hit it, so it should be the same frequency. So if I have a slinky here, and I just pull down that up, it's going to naturally vibrate at a certain frequency. Resonance happens when I have a driving force that moves at a similar frequency that will make this start to move more. So if I just start shaking my hand, it's not doing a whole lot to the amplitude here, but if I move my hand up and down with a similar frequency, notice that it gets bigger and bigger. In order for Tucumanares to be an example of resonance, you'd have to have a gust of wind that gets it vibrating, and then the second gust of wind come in just at the right time, and then the next gust of wind just at the right time. And what the wind is doing instead is it's a constant thing. And so that's why it's not exactly a resonance issue in that sense. An explanation that I've heard is called it basically the flutter effect, and this is one of those things pre-pandemic I would have demonstrated. But if you take a piece of paper and you blow on the end, this end will start fluttering, and it's something similar to that. Seems to be the real explanation for it.
So how come that doesn't happen more often? Did they like change something about bridges?
They've definitely changed the design of that bridge. That was a suspension bridge, and I think now it's not a suspension bridge anymore.
So what was like the building issue? Like, was it just built wrong?
It was
It
just
was-
dangling.
It was built based upon the standards of the time. And they built flexibility into it because they knew that the wind would whip up and cause it to move, and occasionally they would close the bridge down, and it just, for whatever reason that day, it went to an extreme.
Cause like, I don't know if this is true, but I heard like real tall buildings, don't they sway with the wind, like the top? Is that true?
Yeah, I mean, there's part of it, you want it to sway some with the wind, because you don't want, because otherwise you go from everything's fine to suddenly it's broken. And if you're in a really tall building, broken is not good. So they're designed to be able to just take some of that and also to give some indication. All right, so if it's swaying this far, that's natural. If it sways this far, let's get everyone out while we have time.
Is there a reason why the node was in the middle of the bridge?
Say it again?
Is there a reason why the node was in the middle of the bridge?
That would, just probably the more stable, I would say, because the outsides are basically dangling by wires, so it would have to be, if this end is going up, that would have to be the pivot point. I've got conflicting thoughts in my head right now, so I'm not sure I can really give what I would consider a solid answer to that.
So is that why like the middle part broke because it was moving?
Well, I'm not quite sure which part actually broke first. I think the ends broke on, the sides broke first.
Why think so?
Yeah. But what I wonder is, that car that was on the bridge, at what point do they go, hey, we can handle this? And then they get halfway and go, well, maybe not, let's walk off. It just, anyway.
So could there be a potential situation where the node wasn't in the middle of the bridge, as in like the middle, like it could be, I guess, like one fixed, one free end harmonic kind of?
If they had made one half suspension, so being held up by wires, and the other half was fixed, where they basically had steel beams along there, and they made sure that it was solidly connected to, I guess, the ravine underneath, or gorge underneath and the sides, I think you could probably do that.
Okay, so there's no scenario where the whole bridge would be kind of like bowing up and down, like with the nodes at the sides?
Yeah, you would have a node at whatever side was sort of fixed.
Okay, so basically for that one, likely the middle of the bridge was more fixed than the edges?
Yeah, but I was trying to figure out how do the actual construction of it, how would they actually do that, or was it just a natural consequence of it being a suspension bridge? I don't know. I did not, my civil engineering classes did not go that far. Or I did not go that far in my civil engineering classes, I should say.
Quick question, or are you doing something?
Nope.
Okay, earthquakes are also transverse because S waves are like shock waves, right?
You get both.
So both
That was
are,
the P wave was longitudinal and the S wave was transverse.
yes, but earthquakes are not shock waves. They're two separate things.
Earthquakes cause two kinds of waves.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I need to work on the wording of that question, but the intent was that it'd be transverse and longitudinal.
I have a question about the Doppler effect.
Okay.
Would it be possible, like, if there was like a siren or something, if the frequency of the siren changed as it moved, it would seem like the same frequency to the observer?
It would still, you could,
Like, in
Theoretically,
reality,
you
maybe
could set it
not,
up-
but like,
you could set it up so that it was the same frequency for one person in particular, but if you're changing it, so let's say there are a group of us in a line here, if they change it for me specifically, then this is the point in which it would go from, but for you, it would happen later on, or whoever was down there, so they couldn't do it for everybody, but in theory.
but they could do it for one.
In theory, you could do it for one person. It sounds like something an engineering student would probably try at some point, but I don't know.
Wouldn't you just have to change, like, you'd have to, I guess, time when the frequency of the horn would change, kind of, or I guess if I was thinking of if you press a horn. But just kind of like if like the car is traveling and it honks its horn over here, if it were to change pitch as it passes by a certain person, like, could they do that so that it sounds the same for that person, or
Yeah.
like halfway through the drive?
They would do it, if they're heading straight for you, then basically it's one frequency and then it quickly drops to the other frequency as it passes through you. If it's passing by, then it's still relatively close to one frequency, but at some point it starts to change as you get closer, and then it's more gradual. So you could set it up for, I'm gonna pass by that person who's standing that far off the road, and then, I mean, you can have different frequencies of horns.
Yeah, so if you had the whole thing, like the whole span of the horn being like a gradual, like kind of like a gradual change, could it sound the same for that person?
It could, I mean, I don't see why it would not.
Interesting.
I'm starting to think if there's any practical application for that, but I think it would just be for the fun of it.
Yeah. Or I guess if someone's blindfolded and you don't want them to know how close you are.
Not within the realm of my life experience, but,
You don't want
Mine
people to be able
either,
to calculate
but-
anything.
but maybe it's on your bucket list now.
I don't want any part of that.
Alright. Other questions right now on 19 through 21?
Test corrections are due by Thursday.
Sure. Can I write it down? I did not write it down. So you had the test then, I think I handed it back the next day, so yeah, Thursday.
Okay, and you want the original test and our corrections together stapled handed to you on Thursday?
Yes,
Okay.
that's the ideal.
Okay.
Alright, in the little bit of time we have left, are there any other questions, because I was gonna do one other thing. Jasmine?
What chapters is this test, coming up on Thursday on again?
I think I said 19, 20, 21.
Wait, that's
No,
the test?
That
This
says
one's
3.
the-
Oh, wait, sorry,
Oops, sorry.
this Thursday?
Yes.
Ah, sorry about that. That's primarily chapters 2 through 5, the stuff that was on test 1. It's the multiple choice test you took the first day.
And when is Master Set 19 through 21? That's due.
I think I officially have it down for due tomorrow.
Yes, tomorrow. Oh, there is Thursday.
Okay,
Sure.
apparently I got one of those dates wrong, so Thursday. I don't see a need to change it in Blackboard, but we'll just say Thursday, because that's what I wrote down there.
That's when the master sets due now?
Yeah,
Okay,
And also the test.
right.
For the test, do we have to know any, or like the test that we took earlier that we're taking again, do we have to know any formulas or
Nope.
like anything? It's just kind of application?
it's all concept.
It's just the multiple choice test.
So for like test 3, I'm assuming there's like no corrections, right? I feel like it's the
Correct.
same question. Okay.
I did have one class, one semester, who talked me into, if I could get it graded, and they could get it back, come by the next day to pick it up. They could do test corrections, and I had a couple of students do that, but it made absolutely no difference to their grade in the end. So I don't think it was worth
Okay.
the effort. But, yeah, I have to figure out when grades are due, actually.
What percent of our grades are tests?
Right.
What percent of our grades are test scores?
The test average was, what, 77.34% or something like that?
Of your grade?
Roughly.
Of the entire grade?
Yeah,
Okay.
The three.
each test is roughly a quarter of the grade. The quiz average is roughly a quarter of the grade. And then, if it helps you, I bring lab average into it also, since I do lab and class with you. If it does, the lab grade doesn't help your regular class grade, I don't include it. Jasmine, put your hand up.
Oh, yes, so, so this weekend we should start on master sets, 15 through 18, with chapters 15 through